Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. I am genuinely so pumped to have you here today. We're going to dive headfirst into one of the most frustrating, honestly perplexing challenges happening in enterprise tech right now. We're looking at why artificial intelligence looks so incredibly promising in the lab, but then just completely crumbles the second you try to roll it out for real. Today, we're diagnosing exactly why AI success at a small scale almost always masks deep systemic fragility. And more importantly, we're going to talk about how you can actually fix it.
So, here is the million-dollar question we have to start with. Why do successful AI pilots fail to scale? Look, if you're a leader or an engineer watching this right now, you probably know the exact pain of pilot purgatory. You know the drill. The prototype impresses everyone, the board enthusiastically approves the budget, and then nothing. The system just refuses to scale. Momentum slows to a crawl, and the whole project stalls out. Why does this happen so consistently, across totally different industries?
Well, here is our roadmap for today to figure that out. 1. The AI pilot paradox. 2. The 4 organizational depths. 3. The delegation threshold. 4. Hidden traps. 5. The AI control plane. And finally, 6. Pilots to permanence.
Okay, Section 1. The AI pilot paradox. Hiding friction.
Think about the past for a second. Human beings were basically the ultimate shock absorbers for bad systems. When processes relied on unwritten rules, we simply reconciled the difference using our own judgment and, usually a whole lot of duct tape and coffee. But AI completely removes that human buffer. It doesn't pause to interpret ambiguity or ask what you meant. It just operationalizes that ambiguity at literal machine speed. So what used to be a manageable, everyday friction suddenly becomes a hard, structural limit that just breaks your system.
Moving right along to Section 2, the 4 organizational debts. Structural liabilities. We really need to define this crucial concept of organizational debt. And no, we are not talking about financial debt here. These are the structural liabilities your company accumulated through years of honestly, totally rational decisions that were made under tight deadlines and budgets. It's basically a structural pledge of future effort that you made in exchange for present momentum. And the kicker? When you introduce AI, it violently amplifies those hidden debts.
There is this fantastic quote that perfectly captures this. AI does not forgive organizational debt. It prices it in immediately. This is such a powerful, unforgiving reality. Intelligence at scale exposes your true operational costs the absolute second you turn it on. It doesn't care about your messy data or your brittle code. It just reflects it right back at you.
So what actually are these debts? Well, they break down into 4 interlocking types. First, you've got technical debt. We're talking legacy architectures and fragile glue code that literally snap under AI workloads. Second is data debt, untrusted, inconsistent inputs that cause your models to drift and hallucinate. Third, personnel debt, relying on hero-driven tribal knowledge that just leads to massive burnout when systems try to scale. And finally, security debt, silent exposure and identity sprawl that vastly expands your blast radius. In a small pilot, humans can patch over these pretty easily. But at scale, these debts interact to redistribute stress across your entire enterprise until the whole thing breaks. Let's dive into Section 3, the delegation threshold. Balancing autonomy versus assurance.
We call this specific tipping point the delegation threshold, and you officially cross it when 4 very specific conditions are met. 1. The AI acts without synchronous human approval. 2. It actually reasons beyond its original input by inferring intent. 3. It executes way faster than your oversight cycles can keep up with. And 4. Its actions are irreversible. Think sending an automated email to a key client, or actively modifying your core infrastructure. Once you cross this line, mistakes are no longer easily recoverable. No way.
Which gives us a really critical litmus test. Before you grant that kind of autonomy, you absolutely have to ask these 4 questions. Can we reconstruct the why behind an AI action? Can we proactively enforce the do-nots? Can we interrupt the execution fast enough if something goes sideways? And can we confidently prove compliance without just blindly trusting the system? If you're an executive and you cannot answer these 4 questions affirmatively, your delegation risk is completely unpriced and, honestly, fundamentally unsafe.
All right, Section 4. Hidden traps. Amplifying debt.
Now, here's the contrarian reality that surprises a lot of people. When companies execute layoffs to cut costs, they usually think they're reducing personnel debt. But in an AI-enabled organization, you aren't actually eliminating personnel debt. You are refinancing it at a much higher interest rate. You're actively removing the human cognitive capability that was acting as your shock absorber. So what happens? Knowledge concentrates into single points of failure. Cognitive load absolutely explodes for the survivors, and your governance capacity just collapses.
And that brings us to another massive trap: ecosystem debt. Modern AI is basically a giant dependency lattice of cloud providers and open-source models. When you blindly rely on third-party vendors just to get a fast start, you are quietly transferring your authorization and control over to external black boxes. You run into API dependencies, lineage cliffs where you totally lose visibility of your data, and cascading vendor risks where an upstream outage takes down your entire decision logic. You don't just use an ecosystem anymore, you are governed by it.
Which perfectly sets up Section 5, the AI control plane, governing intelligence.
The crucial point we have to understand here is the stark distinction between oversight and control. Traditional governance relies heavily on oversight. It's reactive, it operates at human speed, and it happens post-action. It's basically checking the logs after the damage is already done. Control, on the other hand, is proactive, it's constraining, and it happens pre-action. You really have to remember, AI models merely reason, they infer patterns, but control planes constrain. You absolutely cannot expect a model to govern itself.
So what does a functional AI control plane actually look like? Well, it has these core components: authority boundaries that specify exactly what the AI is allowed to do, execution guardrails that enforce rate limits and sequencing, data usage constraints preventing bias or accidental data leakage, identity for non-human actors, meaning the AI itself is authenticated on your network, and crucially, kill switches that let you halt execution way faster than the consequences can propagate. This right here is how you govern at machine speed.
And finally, Section 6, from pilots to permanence, establishing durable AI through governed capabilities and human-designed machine intelligence.
This whole transformation happens across 3 sequential horizons. Horizon 1 is visibility and stabilization. You absolutely positively must stop the fatal compounding of debt before you do anything else. Figure out where humans are secretly compensating for your broken systems. Horizon 2 is industrialized delivery, where you standardize platforms and replace those human heroics with repeatable engineering. And finally, Horizon 3 is AI-native operations, where systems observe themselves and humans become the governors rather than the compensators.
The secret sauce to moving through these horizons is a really cool concept called debt currency. You see, you don't actually eliminate debt all at once. You strategically exchange liabilities. You deliberately trade lower volatility debt, like maybe accepting some technical constraints or forcing standardized platforms, in order to reduce high volatility debt, like severe personnel burnout or massive security risks. And here is the best part: your pilots are actually the safest sandbox you have to practice this exchange. Use your pilots to convert debt into durable, human-designed machine intelligence capabilities before you ever try to scale.
Which brings us to our final and, frankly, most provocative thought for the day. AI scale does not require perfection. It requires coherence. Artificial intelligence doesn't reward raw ambition. It rewards organizations that honestly understand and actively manage the structures their models depend on. So the question is your organization ready to convert its debt into durable capacity? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. I really hope this completely changes how you look at scaling AI. Keep learning, keep structuring your knowledge, and I'll see you next time.